Hello, how you guys doing? James here. Um, in this video, it's not gonna be very long. It's a short video. Those of you who have inventions, but you know, this is geared. This can gear to any group of people. But if you're a black inventor, black American inventor, I made this video for you because if you have an invention, if you don't ever get acknowledgement here, if you don't ever get licensed here, there have been inventions that have been passed over time that the government don't want to acknowledge you here, and maybe they don't want to use your patents over. They want to use you, but they don't want to acknowledge you as the person of anything because you know how they have to put it. They have to make someone look like this to represent and take your idea. So I made this video for you. If you are a black inventor of today, I'm going to show you a couple videos on how to get your stuff over in another country. All right then.
What is the international patent process? This video is going to give you all you need to know about filing patents outside of the United States and give you information on your different options for filing in foreign countries. So if you're new here, my name is Dylan Adams. I'm a patent attorney and author of the best-selling book, Patents Demystified, which is an insider's guide to protecting ideas and inventions used by inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups worldwide, including top universities like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. You also might recognize me from my appearance on CNBC's hit show, The Profit, with Marcus Lemonis. So this channel is all about giving you the insider information about how I help my clients, whether they be Fortune 100 companies, startups, or Shark Tank companies, protect their ideas and inventions. So hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon so you get notifications of when new videos come out. All right, let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to point out when it comes to the international patent process is there's no such thing as an international patent. And people throw that term around and it leads people to think that you have a United States patent and then there can be this patent that covers the rest of the world or covers a lot of different jurisdictions. And that's
You're worried about testing
Oh man.
for your business? Listen up. With Roku's new self-service ad tool, it's easy to set up your own
different jurisdictions, and that's just not the case. Patents are jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And so, for instance, you could have a United States patent, and you can stop people from making, using, selling, offering to sell the claimed invention within the bounds of the United States or importing into the United States, but you would have to have a patent in any specific other country to stop people from doing stuff there. So, for instance, if you want to stop activity in Canada, you'd have to have a Canadian patent. If you want to stop activity going on in Germany, you would need a German patent. If you want to stop stuff going on in China, you would need a Chinese patent, etc., etc. So patents in international countries are jurisdiction by jurisdiction. So when people talk about an international patent, what people are a lot of times referring to is there is an international patent application called a PCT application, which covers just about any jurisdiction and most of the important jurisdictions. And I'll talk about PCT applications in a moment. So that's the important thing to note right off the bat is patents are jurisdiction by jurisdiction. There's not some wide blanket international patent. Okay, so there are two main ways that you're going to be able to file patent applications or routes that you're going to be able to file foreign patent applications. And when I'm talking about foreign, keep in mind I'm talking about outside the U.S. So I'm a U.S. patent attorney. I work with foreign patent applications all the time. And so when we talk about foreign, it's sort of non-U.S. patent applications. So definitely keep that in mind. So the two ways, one is going to be by filing that PCT application, which I talked about, or you can do direct national applications. So with direct national applications, you have to file those directly in each country, and you have to do that. That's sort of your first step. Okay, it's very, very expensive to do that. Filing fees are really expensive in each country, and most countries require what are called annuities to keep the application pending. And there are maintenance fees in the U.S. once the application is issued. A lot of foreign countries require yearly annuities to keep the application pending, in addition to annuities once the application is issued. Filing fees can be really expensive in each jurisdiction, varies by jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and also kind of on the currency differences. But then also there can be translations. Some countries require translations, which can be expensive. So if you're going to be starting the process with direct national applications, it's a pretty expensive way to go. So typically, the way that we do it for most clients is we file what's called a PCT application. So the PCT application, PCT stands for Paris Cooperation Treaty, and it's really an international treaty that just about every country has with each other that says, hey, if you file this unified PCT application, it's a placeholder that then gives you time to then file national phase applications in each jurisdiction. So a good way to think of it, it's almost like a provisional patent application for international applications. So you file the PCT application, and that's going to give you, typically it's going to be 18 months from when you file the PCT application, or really it's going to be 30 months from your original priority date. And I'll get into the original priority date and what we typically do to start the patent process and then do for it. So it's going to be typically about 30 months from your original priority date. Some countries are 31 months, but just assume that it's going to be 30 months from your original priority date, because that's, it's better to kind of start the process early as possible, because what a lot of people don't realize is that, hey, you can't just file a national phase application immediately. Sometimes you have to, get all these notarizations, you have to get translations, and sometimes it can take weeks, if not months, to actually file in certain foreign jurisdictions. But I kind of digress. So let's kind of talk about the PCT application and what countries you can file in, and sort of the timeline for that. So the PCT covers just about every important country. There are, probably a good example of one that isn't covered is Taiwan, and it's because of sort of the political issues with China. Taiwan is not covered in the PCT. So if you're going to go into Taiwan, if you're going in at the foreign deadline, you have to go in directly. You can't file a PCT application, wait 18 months or 30 months from your original filing date, and go into national phase countries. And so let me get into the way we typically do the process with foreign, and why I keep on saying 18 or 30 months. So what we typically do is we file a provisional patent application. And that's the best way, especially for startups and small companies, to start the patent process. A provisional patent application is just a placeholder. You file it, it waits in line at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and automatically expires after 1 year. That term cannot be extended. So at the end of that year, you have to file the United States non-provisional patent application to be able to claim priority back to the provisional application. That being to get the priority of the filing date of the provisional application. You have to file the non-provisional within the year that the provisional is filed. So with foreign applications, you have a year from your first priority date to file foreign applications. So the deadline to file your foreign application is going to be a year from the provisional, just like the U.S. non-provisional is. So typically, what we'll do is we file the provisional patent application, and then right around the year anniversary, we'll file the U.S. non-provisional, and we'll file a PCT application, which is going to cover folks in just about every jurisdiction that's going to be important, except for Taiwan. And for instance, I work with a lot of folks who do things with chip manufacturing or software stuff, and a lot of times it makes sense to file in Taiwan as well for those folks. Not for every company, but what we'll do then is we'll file the U.S. non-provisional, we'll file the PCT application, and then we'll also file direct national phase in Taiwan. That's a pretty common thing. So like I said, that's why I keep on saying it's 18 months from when you file the PCT application. So it's 12 months from the provisional to the PCT application, and then it's 18 months from when you file the PCT application to then when you have to file the national phase applications. That being a total of 30 months from when you filed the provisional. So that's why I kept on saying it's a total of 30 months. And so yeah, it's a long time, and that's a positive thing. You kind of want to delay the time that you're having to spend all this money on foreign applications. Doing a PCT application, the filing fees, they can be upwards of $3,000. So the total cost of filing a PCT application can, a lot of times be $5,000. So they're not inexpensive. But having that additional 18 months can be really, really important, because filing national phase applications, it's one of the biggest mistakes I see startups making, is over-investing in foreign protection and doing so too early. Because to give you just a general ballpark, assume it's going to take it's going to be $25,000 overtime per jurisdiction in English-speaking countries, or it's going to be $35,000 overtime in non-English speaking countries, and that's going to be because of translation and things like that, which is going to increase costs. Depends on the jurisdiction. Sometimes filing fees can be lower, and attorney costs are going to be lower in some jurisdictions, but that's just a general good ballpark. I mean, it's a lot of money to spend, so you really want to know whether or not it makes sense to actually file in those foreign jurisdictions. And having that extra 18 months from the PCT application can be a huge lifesaver for folks, and it can make the difference between wasting money and or then maybe potentially not filing foreign patent application and losing out on good investors or good partnerships with folks because they haven't preserved foreign rights. And what happens a lot of times is in the life cycle of startups is that that 30 months from when they file the provisional application, that's right when they're starting to figure out foreign markets, right when they're starting to get partnerships with folks who actually have penetration in that market, and right when they're starting to get investors who may really care about certain foreign jurisdictions. So having that 30 months from the provisional that you get in addition to by filing the PCT application, that is really, really important, because it gives you more time to figure out, hey, what jurisdictions are we actually going to be working in? What jurisdiction do our investors really care about? What's the market size in some of these jurisdictions? And given the cost of what patents are to file there and to get through examination, and then for enforcement, is it really worth it given the market size and the likelihood we're even going to have partnerships there? I mean, the big mistake I see people do is, well, we know that we're going to have partnerships in China. It's going to be important, and we want to file in Europe, and they file all these foreign patent applications, and it is really difficult for people to let those things go, and they throw good money after bad. And no joke, I've seen startups tanked because they just.
Remember how fast those stimulus checks ran out? This is.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, an intellectual property firm that does patents, trademarks, and copyrights both domestically and internationally. And we're going to talk about a frequently asked question. So people often call and say, what is a PCT application?
It is one of the more frequent questions we get, and PCT stands for Patent Cooperation Treaty. And it's a way to file your patents internationally. So if you file a patent first in the US and you want to protect your idea in different countries, Europe, Japan, Canada, Mexico, you can do that, and the PCT application is one way that people are able to protect their intellectual property internationally.
So it's actually a treaty, right, between the United States and all these other countries.
Right, exactly. And virtually every country is a member of the PCT treaty. There's a few that aren't in Latin America. I think Argentina is not. But for the most part, filing an application under the PCT allows you to delay filing individual applications in each country where you want patent protection.
So if I come to you and I want to get a patent on an invention, and we do the United States, say we start with a provisional application because that's normally what we would do, right? And then a year later we file the utility application. When do I have to decide whether or not to file a PCT application? How much does that cost? How much does that add to the cost?
So usually you'd want to file a PCT application within 1 year of your first filing.
So when you file the utility, if you've done a provisional.
Right, you would file it at the same time as you file the utility application, typically. That gives you an additional 18 months to make a decision about whether or not you're going to file the application in countries outside the U.S. So the PCT is a way to defer your foreign filing decisions for an additional 18 months past when you would otherwise have to make that decision.
So how much does that cost typically?
It's usually, it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the page length, depends on the search authority, that is, which country actually does the patent search that comes with the PCT. But in general, it's around $2,500 for the WIPO fee, or the International Search Authority fee. And then, Gearhart Law also charges a fee on top of that to process the paperwork and monitor the application.
So let's say I had let's say I had a 25-page application with 20 claims, and I wanted to file a PCT. About how much would that one
It
cost?
would be probably about $2,200 to $2,500.
And then what would the Gearhart law fees be?
It would be about $800.
So a little over 3,000. And then I have a year and a half, so I guess the purpose of this is to say, okay, let me see if I can commercialize this in the US. And if it looks like it's catching on in the US and I'm getting sales, then maybe there's some other countries I want to file in.
That's part of the reason for filing the PCT. In the patent world, the name of the game is deferring fees and costs as long as you can, because you do want to see if there's a market for your product in Europe or China or Canada before you pay the patent fees to prosecute the application there. Another piece of it too is if you're looking for investor funding and the product has global appeal and you're trying to appeal to investors, lots of times having the opportunity to file globally with your technology makes your project more appealing.
So basically what you do is you take the patent application that I filed in the United States and you send it to like the Korean authority or somebody, right? For PCT or?
Yeah, there's a receiving offices and then there's search authorities, and we'll help figure out which receiving office it would go to. Normally we would file it with the US as the receiving office, and then they're the ones that receive the application and process it. Then there's also a search that goes with the PCT application. You can choose Europe or the US or Korea or Australia to actually do the search, and then you get a search report back, an international search report that all the other patent offices typically review and take into consideration as your application would go through their countries.
So if I've done a patent search before I started my US application, how is that international search different, or is it very different?
They may be slightly different in the results, and so you would have then two searches.
Okay, so then I've done that, and now it's 18 months, and I decide, well, I would really love to file in 100 different countries, but I think it's kind of expensive. So let me just pick one other country right now to file in and get the cost on that, and then see how many countries I can actually do. So let's pick the EU, because that's like a big thing. So how much would it cost then? So then it's, what is it called, nationalization?
No, if you want to receive patent protection in Europe, we would file the application with the European Patent Office. The cost of that is usually between $6,000 and $7,000. It goes through an exam European Patent Office, and at the end, you decide then which countries in Europe you want the patent granted in. So you would go through the European Patent Office, and then at the end, if you're successful, you might want the application in the UK, in France, in Germany, Spain, any one of the many EU countries, and it can be, and that's what the nationalization process is.
So when you pick the final country where you want it to be, like, then that's called nationalization.
Right, right.
So that means that it's a patent in that nation, kind of.
Right. So if at the end of the 18-month period, you decide which countries you would want to enter from the PCT. And so you may select China, the EU, Canada, Brazil, and then we would file individual patents in each one of those countries through patent agents and attorneys that are located in those countries.
And it's about 10,000 a country, you think, or?
Right. We estimate 10 to 15,000 per country from start to finish per application. So it would cost probably, in some countries like Canada, it's relatively inexpensive. In other countries like Brazil, it's more expensive because the application has to be translated into Portuguese. And so the costs become, for the application, start to rise the more countries you select. And in addition, unlike the US, most other countries have taxes or maintenance fees that need to be paid on a yearly basis, which add another $500 to $700 per year onto the cost of the application per country. So if you want to do a large international filing, you want to select maybe 10 countries, then the cost overall over time would probably end up to be around $150,000 to globally protect the technology from one application.
So I guess it's really pretty much big companies that do that. So then another question I have, so let's say that I'm going through this process here and maybe in England, and my application gets granted here but gets rejected in England. Will that affect my application here at all, what happened in England?
No, I mean, that's a great question, but normally the patent offices don't pay attention to the prosecution of the application in different countries. So it's really just what happens in that individual country.
So then if I'm British and I'm living in England and I file my application in England and I want to do a PCT and I want to file in the United States, then that's called a U.S. nationalization for me?
Right.
Okay. And how many countries, like, it's over 150, right?
Yeah.
That are part of this treaty?
Right. I think it's over 180.
So the whole purpose of the treaty really is to give people that time window to decide how much money they have to spend on it. That's part of the process.
Right. I mean, and that helps everybody by, deferring costs and making that big investment only when it makes sense from a business perspective.
So how many of your clients do you think actually do the PCT placeholder?
I would say 50% of our clients do the PCT placeholder, and then of those, probably about half actually end up filing patents in foreign countries.
So what happens if I don't file the PCT application within a year of my first filing of any type of other application, provisional utility, what have you? I don't file it in time, and then I decide like a couple years later, hey, I really did want to do this in England or somewhere. What happens?
Well, unfortunately, you're in a little bit of a bind, and so you probably wouldn't be able to file internationally if you don't file the PCT application within that 1-year period. There are some exceptions to that. It's possible, depending on the circumstances, to file the PCT application as late as 6 months after the priority date or the conversion date is missed. It's really best to file the PCT application within 1 year of the originally filed application. And most countries are not so forgiving if you miss the nationalization deadline of the PCT. So, for example, the PCT allows you to defer filing in foreign countries for a period of 18 months, but if you miss that 18-month deadline and you don't file in Japan or Australia or Canada, then most countries don't give you a grace period. There's a few, like the European Union, that give you an extra month. Canada gives you extra time too. But countries like China, Japan, and most other countries don't allow you to file international applications off of PCT past the 18-month extension. So you really have to make up your mind, within that time frame and make a decision. So unfortunately, the rights can be lost if you don't file the applications in time.
Let's say I feel like I want to file in the U.S. and I want to file in England, and those are the only two countries I'm ever going to want. So I file my utility application in both of the U.S. and England, and I get the date, the filing date, which is important, as we've discussed before. Should I still do a PCT just in case, or do you think, what would you advise a client in that situation?
It depends on your budget. If you have the money to file a PCT application anyway, and the $2,000 or $3,000 investment is a small part of your overall budget, then it may make sense to do that just to keep your options open. If, on the other hand, you're a startup and that $2,000 or $3,000 could be better spent on marketing or some other expense, then if you're pretty confident that you're not going to sell the product anywhere except the U.S. and in England, it may make more sense just to spend it on other business expenses.
Okay.
Wow. So So it's good to know this information. So if you're an expat, you know, if you see this video, or you're a passport man that, you know, this is information, you got an idea that can, you know, with partnership, and you got some kind of invention, and you live in, going to these countries, and you're a U.S. expat, and you live over there, it's probably good to know this information so you can have some invention over there, your patent, so your product could be over there. But that's one of the reasons why I made this video. Let me see.
Create a voiceover using your own voice.
So you're filing a patent application in the United States, and you're thinking about filing a patent application in a couple of foreign countries as well. What are the deadlines? What countries should you file in, and how do you do it? We're going to talk about these and other topics in this video today. Hi, my name is John Farrell. I'm a Silicon Valley patent attorney. Welcome back to my channel. From the United States, there are a variety of ways to file patents in foreign jurisdictions. First of all, you can file country by country, each country entering a national application. Also, there's patent treaty organizations. For example, the Patent Cooperation Treaty, which allows you to file patents in up to 156 countries. The European Patent Office also has a European Patent Cooperation Treaty, which covers some 38 countries. And the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization covers some 20 countries of Africa, mostly Southern Africa and Eastern Africa. In this video, we're going to focus on filing foreign patent applications country by country. I'm hoping to have some future videos on some of the patent treaty organizations. Now, there's no shortage in the world of where to file foreign patent applications. The United Nations is represented by some 195 different countries, including the Holy See and Palestine. And as far as I can tell, all but 9 of these have patent systems, national patent programs in their countries. Now, perhaps it's fair to add to this list of 9 the country of Russia, whose patent system just went kaput, as they've decided to abolish recognition of patents from those countries whose economies are no longer aligned with theirs. And that represents most of the free world, as it turns out. Now, the countries without recognized patent systems include East Timor, Suriname, Somalia, Eritrea, the Maldives, Myanmar, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Palau. If you know of any other countries that don't have patent systems, or if you can add any additional information about the countries I listed, please put them in the comment section below. We'd love to update our list. In addition to charging a fee for the application or registration of this patent right, most countries also charge an annual renewal fee or a maintenance fee for the privilege each year of owning and continuing that monopoly in the specific country. More significantly, and again as an act of sovereignty, most countries require that the patent applications be translated into the native language of that country. Now, this makes a lot of sense because each country wants to make their patents accessible to their citizens. But unfortunately, this translation cost can add a lot to the burden of the cost of the patent. A typical patent translation may cost between 20 cents and 40 cents a word, so it's important that we choose carefully when deciding which foreign countries we want to file our patent application in. Now, we said that all countries have a first-to-file patent system, this race to the patent office requirement. But also many countries have an absolute novelty requirement. That is, they require that you file the patent application in their country first, or at least at the same time as you file the U.S. application. So it's very important before filing your U.S. patent application to understand the requirements in the particular country that you're interested in. Do you need to file your application in that country on the same day that you file your U.S. application? And as part of this absolute novelty requirement, most countries require that you file patent applications in their countries prior to making your invention public. So you'll want to be sure and check the rules for those foreign countries that you're interested in filing in before either making your invention public or filing your application in the United States. Now, once you file the patent application in a foreign country, the examination process can vary dramatically. Some European countries and some Asian countries have a very rigorous process of examination. They look at prior art patents in those countries and possibly other countries to see if anyone has preceded you with the same invention. Other countries, however, don't have formal or rigorous examination processes. It's more of a registration or a rubber stamp process. So it's helpful in advance just to understand what to expect in the particular country that you're filing in. Now, if you want to file a patent application in a foreign country, the best place to start is with your U.S. patent attorney. Most U.S. patent attorneys have close relationships with foreign associate attorneys throughout the world. They have attorneys that they work with in other countries that they can rely on to answer questions and to get your patent application efficiently filed and granted in those foreign countries. This is so much better than just going online and randomly trying to find a foreign patent attorney. You'll just have no idea what you could end up with. Now, normally we'll start with a U.S. patent application. The U.S. patent filing requirements are among the strictest in the world, and generally if you prepare and file a U.S. patent application, that application with some slight formatting variations will be acceptable in all of the rest of the patent systems throughout the world, subject of course to a translation into their native language. Now, when it comes to the foreign translation, your U.S. patent attorney will usually delegate that translation to the patent attorney in the foreign country. Now, your grandmother may speak a little bit of Hungarian and possibly offer to save you some money in the translation. But because the translations are so important, and because the language used in a patent specification is often so particular, it's better to let a professional translator who's being supervised by the foreign patent attorney deal with the translation. Now, once translated, the foreign application is then filed for examination or for registration. And the examination or registration fees vary pretty widely between countries. In the UK, for example, the filing fees can run from $500 to $1,000 or more, depending on the number of claims and the number of pages and some other things. In Honduras, in contrast, the registration fee for a Honduran patent application is around $100. But it's important to understand that for most countries, their patent systems are a revenue-generating system for the country. It's a tax that's put on inventors for the privilege of owning a limited monopoly in that country. Now, with 195 countries, we would expect that the timing and examination process for patent applications would vary widely. It can range anywhere from 6 months in some countries to 3 years or more. It's a good idea to talk with your U.S. patent attorney to get a sense of how long the process is going to take. And if you have questions about a specific country, ask your U.S. patent attorney, because they're typically, again, able to reach out by email to their foreign associates and get most questions answered very quickly. Patent laws are changing constantly in all countries, so don't be too surprised if your patent attorney may not know the exact answer for a specific country, usually before.
Okay, but I want to make this right quick. I don't want to bore you. So for you expats that are inventors, or you travel, you business people that travel, or you have apps or something like that, and you might want to go overseas. I don't know how the other guys do it on social media. I saw a lot of them like on different like travel channels, and but this is one way of doing it, and this is probably be the best way to go. But it is to get an attorney so they can turn. That makes a lot of sense. But anyway, hey, if you don't get recognition here, you can get recognition in another country. And so if you have an idea that can help out the world, hey, it's probably worth the money. All right then, guys. Hope this was information. Share it with somebody, and hope this would good luck with your invention and your future business endeavor. Be blessed and see you on the next video. Like and subscribe, and take care.